Hey everybody, welcome back, and today we're going to talk about CountA, CountIf, CountRows, and these functions are going to be highlighted in this particular video. So let's get into editing this particular example that we have for you. And once this loads up, everybody cue up the Jeopardy music and da-da-da. In any event. All right, so let's take a look at this collection that we've got going on here. So let's see if we can format this text a little bit better so we can see kind of more clearly what's going on. I have a collection with 3 rows of data inside of it. Notice that a couple of callouts that I want you to take notice of, because we're going to talk about this as we move through it. The name of this particular item that's in inventory is blank. The quantity for this particular item is using the blank function, thus making the value itself null or blank. And then we've got active, which is true and false and true across each of these, okay? So with that in mind, and that being the collection, we'll come back to this probably a couple more times as we work through these examples. So let me shorten up this window here, or at least try to. Continue to go. Anyway, good enough. So I am going to press the Alt key down, and now all my zeros are going to have a number in them. Boop. So I press the Alt key. I push the collection button to put the collection into memory. We can see we've got 3 rows here. We view the table. We've got our data. Okay. So let's look at each one of these. Here is the count. Okay. Count. Now, the way that this works is you have to take the source object. So let's look at IntelliSense, and we'll pop this out here. So we do count, and now IntelliSense is supposed to kick in to help us figure out what's going on here. Not much help. Inventory. Okay, there it is, finally. So what you're getting here is count, and then it just says the source. It needs the table source, right? But it doesn't need a table read. And so when you read, it says a column of values to count. And it counts the numeric values of a specified column. So the way you do this, again, credit out to Shane Young, because I've adopted his shovel digging nomenclature here. That dot is going to be your shovel to allow you to dig in. So you have table dot column, and the dot allows you to dig in. Remember, we covered this also in the operator series. So this is not just a table. It says data type table, and it is technically a table. It's an enumerated list for the quantity row, but also note, if I look at my table again, quantity is a numeric column. I could also use the ID column. And if we look at the formula for creating this particular table, this is a text, this is numeric. See, there's no quotes around these. So this is considered, and look at the data type, number. So this count function only works on a column that has a numerical integer. Okay, hopefully I've beaten that horse to death. And you'll notice that the count is only coming up with 2. And you may be saying, well, why is that the case? Because if I change this, say, to ID, which again also is a numeric column, now I get 3. And the reason for that is the count function doesn't take into account the blank item or the null value or the missing. So if it's null or if it's blank, it's not going to get counted. You need to be very aware of this, or you're going to get very weird outcomes in the event that maybe you have weird anomalous data, or your data doesn't have this today, but tomorrow it might, and now you're going to chase down a bug. And the reason for the bug might be it's a blank value when you expected it to be, the exact number of rows that you have inside of your database. So if we look over here at the description, and this is very confusing. Honestly, I haven't figured it out. I mean, it reads completely different. So if we read through this, it says the count function counts the number of records that contain a number in a single column table. So this is a multi-column table, but it works by specifying what I just showed you in context. So table dot column name, and that column name has to be an integer. Now, there's an extra call out with CountA, but we just observed that the behavior of count operates, in my opinion, the same as CountA. So CountA function counts the number of records that are not blank in a single column table. This function includes the empty text. Let's go back here. Okay, so the key seems to be that this isn't specifying that it has to be a single column of numbers. So maybe that's the key difference. I was really struggling before the video to try to help explain this for you, but I think I may have just figured this out. So if we look at count, which has to be an ID, what did I have? Quantity? Q-A-N-T-I-T-Y. Here, I think I still have it on the clipboard. Can't spell. All right. Yep. So the quantity, we know we have that blank value there, and this only works there. So CountA is operating the same. So it also doesn't count the column. But if we count the name, it goes 3. So, okay, that was the key difference. Count has to work on integers. CountA can work on integers and text, but like count, if it encounters a blank or a null value, it's going to just completely ignore it. However, note that CountA includes blank, like quote quote, in the count, and we're seeing this here. So CountA, and we look at the table, we can see that the name column for the first row, for item 1, ID 1, is quote quote, or just blank. So let's look at the collection when we created this, and you'll see this actually is the case. See, name is quote quote. So it, even though it's blank, it's not null, it's just blank. And so at that point, you can tell that it's going to get counted. So again, the key takeaway is count is integers, CountA is integers and text. It just doesn't care, it's very flexible. So if you're simply just looking for the most flexibility to count your columns, assuming that they're not blank, understand that. And when I say blank, I literally mean null, using like the blank function, not quote quote. Then it will go ahead and get it counted, whether it's numerical or text. All right, CountIf is interesting. So what it does is it will count the number of records in a table that evaluate to true. Now, you can accomplish this several different ways. If we look at the code behind, I explicitly put in a true and a false value for active. I could have put in zeros and ones, and it probably would not have worked. Let's see if that works. So this would be 1, this would be 0, this would be 1, and let's regenerate the collection. CountIf, so active, it does take into account Boolean values as well as true and false. So that's nice to know. And the other thing to understand is I don't have to use a column like this. Let's come back out here, active. Foo is true. Bar is false. Foo is true. Okay. Collection. CountIf. Everything's coming back as null, or not null, 0, meaning nothing evaluates to true. So in this case, I can do if active. Here, let's do this. So now I have this portion of the function that it needs to evaluate the true. So if active equals foo, then true, otherwise false. Let's close the if, close the statement. So now this function is saying if it's foo, it's true. If it's anything other than foo, then it's false. Now, that is kind of a loose way of doing it. I personally don't like it, because if there's an opportunity for anything other than foo and other than bar to be introduced into your data, you're going to get, again, some false comments. So I can make it schnickens, and it doesn't equal foo, so it's always going to come out as false. You just have to evaluate your business logic to know whether or not this is exactly something that you're looking for, but just know that A, you can use the value implicitly if it's true, false, or 0 or 1. Otherwise, you're going to have to write a formula in order to evaluate if something is true or false. The last one is quite simply, very easily. You use CountRows. It's going to count the rows, number of rows that you have in your table, and you simply just need to pass it a collection or a table name, okay? And that's it. It'll just simply count the rows, doesn't care if anything's true or false, data types, doesn't care, just counts the number of rows in your table. Straight up, very easy to use. There's lots of use cases for it. Again, documentation links at the bottom. That's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye-bye.